Robert's eyes flickered, fighting to stay shut, but his restless mind wouldn't allow it. At last, they opened. A sterile hospital room came into focus. White walls, white sheets, cold metal railings, a drawn curtain separating him from the next bed, an old television hanging from the wall, an empty tray beside him. His stomach growled. He lifted his head and immediately regretted it. Pain stabbed through his neck, then spread everywhere else. His arms ached. His fingers burned. His thighs tightened like the muscles were about to knot. Every inch of him hurt. But he was alive. That much was clear. The last thing he remembered was leaving the bar with every intention of ending his life. After that, nothing. He shifted again and noticed the IV in his arm. The heart monitor, the steady electronic beeping that told him his body was still here, still functioning, still refusing to let go. Robert laid his head back and stared at the ceiling. Where am I? He thought. A hospital, his own personal hell. Robert hated hospitals, not always. Once, long ago, he had worked in one. Overnight security, that was where he met Rebecca, an overnight ER nurse with sharp instincts and a kind smile. They married. They had a son, Roland, the brightest thing Robert had ever known. For a while, life had felt right. Whole. Simple in the best way. Then came the checkup. Then came the diagnosis. The three dreaded words Robert would never get out of his head. Aortic valve, stenosis, 3 years of tests, waiting rooms, medical jargon, false hope, and long nights spent pretending things were under control. 3 years of watching his son suffer, 3 years of learning that love did not guarantee protection. Hospitals had become the place where fathers learned how powerless they really were. Robert squeezed the bed rail and shut his eyes tight. His pulse climbed. He tried to breathe the way his therapist taught him. In, hold, out, again, again, again. Mr. Pikeman, are you okay? Robert opened his eyes. A young nurse stood in the doorway, carrying a clipboard, blonde-haired and bright-faced, her expression full of concern. I'm Nurse Macy, she said. Robert swallowed. I think so. He looked at her, confused, uncertain. Do you know why I'm here? She blinked. You really don't remember? He stared back blankly. Then she smiled. Mr. Pikeman, you're a hero. Last night you jumped into the river and pulled a woman and her daughter out of a sinking car. You saved their lives. Robert froze. Then the memory came back all at once. Fisherman's Bridge, the river, the car going over, the freezing water, the rescue, and before that, him heading there to die. But another memory returned too. A dream. Roland in the park. Roland speaking to him. Roland telling him there was still more for him to do, that he still had a purpose. The room closed in on him. The hospital, the memory of Roland, the water, the impossible dream. All of it hit at once. Robert swung his legs over the bed. Macy stepped forward. Mr. Pikeman, are you okay? Where are my clothes? What? My clothes, I need to leave. She tried to calm him, told him he should wait for a doctor, told him she would feel better if he were medically cleared first. Robert barely heard her. He wanted out. Now. She removed the IV, took off the monitors, told him to stay still, told him she'd be right back with his clothes. The second she left, Robert sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the room again. Every inch of it dragged old memories back to the surface. Waiting, pacing, watching Roland sleep, watching Rebecca try to stay strong, listening for footsteps in the hall, hoping they belonged to a doctor with good news. They never did. When Macy returned, Robert changed as fast as he could. She asked one more time if he was sure he wanted to leave. He lied and said he felt fine. Before he walked out, he stopped. The mother and daughter, he asked, are they okay? Macy hesitated. All I can say is they're alive, and that's because of you. That was enough. He signed himself out and left. Robert walked the hospital corridor in a daze. His mind replayed the river, Roland's voice, the warmth of his son's embrace in that impossible moment beneath the water. Then, without realizing it, he stepped off the elevator on the wrong floor. Or maybe not the wrong one. He looked up. Room 611. His blood turned cold. No, he whispered. No, 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 no. No, not this room. God, not this room, he thought. His heart dropped to his feet. 611 was Roland's room, the place where hope had withered, where fear had taken up permanent residence, where every conversation had felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. Robert staggered back, chest tightening. He turned to flee and stopped. Someone stood there, a boy, his son. Roland. Robert blinked hard, expecting the vision to vanish. It didn't. He didn't. Roland raised a finger to his lips, then pointed to the door of room 611. I don't understand, Robert whispered. Roland only shushed him again. Robert moved closer. Voices drifted from inside the room, muffled at first, then sharper, louder. An argument. A woman's voice broke through. How are we going to pay for this? Robert froze. Those exact words, that exact fear. He had heard them before. From him, his own voice. He was suddenly back in another version of this room. Back with Rebecca. Back on the day they learned what Roland's condition really meant. Back when the doctors laid out treatment plans and costs that felt impossible for ordinary people to survive. Inside the room, the argument escalated. Jordan, how are we going to pay for all of this? I don't know how, but we will. But how? We'll find a way. Robert mouthed the responses before the man even said them. He knew this script, knew the rhythm of desperation, knew the helplessness hiding beneath anger. Then the man's voice hardened. He's our son. There's no other option. I am not letting him die in this hospital bed. The woman cried. The man lashed out harder. And Robert realized something painful. This family was not replaying his exact past. They were replaying a version of it that might end worse. Excuse me, sir, what are you doing? A soft voice from behind asked. Robert turned. A nurse stood there, staring at him. Anna, one of Roland's old nurses. He fumbled for words. I don't even know how I got here. Anna studied him closely. She could see the shaking hands, the twitching fingers, the way he rocked uneasily in place. Then the door opened. A tall, thin man stormed out, furious and overwhelmed, heading straight for the elevator. Anna watched him go and sighed. Poor family. Robert looked at her. Why? Their son, Edward, needs a heart transplant. Robert stared after the man. Then, over Anna's shoulder, Roland appeared again, pointing toward the elevator as the door closed. Go after him, Robert asked. Roland nodded. What? Anna asked, confused, following Robert's gaze, but seeing nothing there. Robert shook himself awake. I'm sorry, Anna. I have to go. And he ran. Robert rushed out from the elevator into the hospital lobby. Where did he go? Robert mumbled, seeing the sliding doors slide back together. Robert raced outside. Outside, Robert searched the sidewalk, seeing nothing. No one. Roland appeared once more at the end of the corner, pointing, guiding his father. Robert sprinted to the corner. There, halfway down the street. He glimpsed Jordan crossing the street, heading into a bar. Robert paused outside the door to the bar. What am I doing? He muttered. This was insane. He was following the ghost of his dead son to a bar so he could speak to a stranger he had just overheard in the middle of a marital breakdown. He turned, about to walk away. He couldn't do this. Then Roland appeared again, standing in front of him, blocking his path. A breath escaped his lips as Roland subtly shook his head. Robert turned and gulped hard. Here goes nothing. Inside, Jordan was already at the bar with a shot in front of him. Robert took his stool 2 spaces away and ordered a rum and Coke. The place was dim, half empty, and familiar in all the worst ways. TVs on the walls, sunlight leaking through damaged window tint, a tired bartender, the stale comfort of alcohol hanging in the air. Robert stared at his drink. Drinking had once been occasional, and now it was constant. Since the accident, alcohol had become the structure of his day. Wake up and drink. Hurt, drink. Remember, drink. Don't want to remember, drink more. He hadn't gone this long without it in months. Jordan lifted his glass, signaling for the bartender to get one for Robert.
Don't enjoy drinking alone, mister.
The bartender slid a shot glass in front of Robert. Robert gave a weak nod, eyeing the glass before throwing it back. Maybe that would steel him for whatever Roland had guided him there to do. Jordan turned and took a closer look at him.
Wait, you were outside my son's room, weren't you?
Robert stiffened.
You got a kid up there too?
Robert looked down. I did. Jordan realized what he'd asked and apologized. Then came another question.
If you lost him 6 months ago, what were you doing at the hospital today?
Robert could have lied and told this stranger anything. Instead, he told a partial truth. He said he'd gone back to thank the nurses for all their condolences. Robert lowered his head and told this stranger that he hadn't only lost his son, but his wife too. Jordan frowned.
Losses?
Robert swallowed hard. My wife and son were taken from me in an accident. Jordan stared at him, sobered for one brief second by the size of that sentence. Then he signaled for another round.
This drink's on me,
He said.
There's no manual for this kind of shit, is there?
Robert almost laughed at the phrasing. No, he said, there really isn't. Jordan talked about finding out he was having a son, about the excitement, about imagining fishing trips, life lessons, all the little moments fathers build in their heads before the child is even old enough to remember them. Then came the diagnosis, heart transplant, genetic disorder, hospital bills, fear, shame. The poisonous question every parent asks in silence, did this come from me? Robert listened, then added the rest. How a million thoughts hit at once. How helplessness is the worst part. How being a father feels suddenly meaningless when you cannot stop the one threat that matters most. Jordan stared at him like someone had finally spoken his language.
Yes,
He said,
you get it.
he admitted he and his wife barely talked anymore except to fight. Admitted he thought she might be giving up. Admitted he was angry all the time because anger felt easier than fear. Robert knew that feeling. He had lived inside it, first with rage, then with alcohol. For the first time, Jordan's anger cracked and something more honest showed through. Pain and exhaustion, love with nowhere safe to go.
I'm sorry to ask,
He said.
but how did you and your wife get through it?
Robert sat with the question. He thought of Rebecca, their fear, their strain, the fights they could have had, but didn't, the ways grief bends two people until they either break apart or learn how to hold each other differently. Then he answered, honestly, communication. Jordan stared at him. That's it? Robert nodded. It sounds simple. It's not. You talk when you don't want to. You keep talking when you're tired, angry, scared, or hurt. You compromise. You remember you're on the same side. He paused, emotion rising in his throat. Most importantly, you don't give up, not on your son, not on each other. You fight for the person who can't fight for himself, and you make sure your wife and your boy know you love them every chance you get because you do not know how much time you have. You just don't. Jordan lowered his glass. Robert kept going. If you're hurting, she is too. She may just be showing it differently, but that doesn't mean she's given up. It means she's drowning in her own way. The full drink in Jordan's hand suddenly looked foreign to him. He set it down. Jordan stood. His whole demeanor had changed. The anger was still there somewhere, but clarity had pushed through it.
You're right.
He said,
I can't keep doing this. I've got to fight for my family.
he shook Robert's hand, paid for the drinks, apologized to the bartender, apologized for the way he'd been coming in and tearing himself apart in public. Then he turned back to Robert.
I'm sorry for what happened to yours. And thank you. Truly.
And just like that, he was gone. The bartender came over, stunned. That man's been in here a few times a week for months, he said. Always drunk, always angry. I've never seen him leave on his own without getting hammered. Not until today. Robert looked down at his own untouched shot, then up. In the mirror behind the bar, Roland stood in the reflection, and Robert finally understood. He had not been brought there to drink. He'd been brought there to stop another man from making the same mistakes he had made. Robert gave his son a small nod. Then he stood and walked out. The shot glass remained full.